Welcome to the Monday edition of the Q&A series here on OTRSCentral. If you want your questions answered in the Q&As that come every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel, the information on how to do so is in the description box down below. So let's get started here. Some good questions. No time better than now to get started. At FIFO 2010, from a sheer box office draw point of view, what's the biggest match WWE could potentially or hypothetically have? Um, if the streak was still intact, it would have been Cena and Taker. No question in my mind about that. The biggest box office attraction match they could probably have at this point, ironically enough, would still involve Cena, and I think it would probably be him and Lesnar, if I had to say. Other ones that could still draw a big box office, I think a Sting Taker match would still draw some big box office. Cena Roman at WrestleMania 31 would draw some big box office, especially if it was teed up too properly. Those would be a few that stand out to me. Well, I guess you could also say, in theory, if we're going hypotheticals, Punk versus Austin. There you go. I'm sure that's what you wanted me to say. At MBF BCC 22, how would things have changed if not Austin's neck injury from his Owen Hart match permanently retired him? God only knows. The entire landscape of the professional wrestling business could be different still to this day. It might be WCW who is reigning supreme. There might be no major professional wrestling companies because maybe WWF would have went out of business and WCW still would have eventually went out of business. Scary to think about, actually. At FTW Gaming 99, thank you to TNA for giving a black man the world title is what you said, but isn't it more racist to be in a black guy heel group? No. It would be more racist if that black guy heel group was sagging their pants and sitting there and mugging people and wearing hoodies and portraying them in a certain way, or you were having them rap when they came out to the ring every time, or you were having them dance that funky groove. That would be more racist. Having them as part of a black guy heel group, I don't think would be classified as racist, no. At C. Pivcac, do you think The Undertaker has one more match left in him, or was his one against Brock his last? I think he might have another match in him. I don't know what the point is anymore because the whole point of Taker coming back every year was to defend the streak at WrestleMania, and now the streak is broken, so why come back? Unless he has a return match against Brock and they fucking go there with having Brock retire The Undertaker. Oh, Christ. I'll guess for now that Taker has one more match left in him at WrestleMania. At Grand J, what will happen to the wrestlers who don't win either of the two Money in the Bank matches? For most of them, back to mediocrity of the mid-card and not being consistently featured properly and not being developed into future stars. There you go. At Ahmed_LW, who is your favorite late-night talk show host? It is Jon Stewart, and it is probably not even close after that. Maybe you didn't expect me to say that, but Jon Stewart's my dude. At Antonio Vargas01, are Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr underrated in how important they were as role players for the Bulls during the 90s? No, I don't think so, especially from the standpoint of Kukoc. I mean, I don't think they're underrated at all. I mean, they're not talked about in the class of a Jordan, a Pippen, a Rodman, a Horace Grant, or a Paxson or a Cartwright, but they get their due. I don't think they're underrated. At Asel Meki, if TNA goes live every Monday head-to-head with Raw, will that make both products better? It sure as hell didn't in 2010, so I highly doubt 4 years later that it would do so. Just keeping it real with you, Asel Meki. I don't see... In order for that change to occur, in order for that to have a real positive impact on the business, TNA would have to be a much better position than they are currently. At Rick Styles 1985, do you think Cena only does 5 moves because he doesn't want to have a Psycho Sid moment? Please include laugh. You know, this laugh about Psycho Sid is not something you could just pimp out. It's not something I could just prostitute out there regardless. As far as John Cena's 5 moves of doom, he actually does more than 5 moves. You know, he just has his go-to moves, if you will. And, part of the thing is, at times, you sit there and maybe expand a little bit and do different stuff, but at the same point in time, everybody has those go-to moves that they've become proficient in, except in Cena's case, sometimes they become fluent in, and it becomes kind of their comfort zone, and it's the spots or the moves that they build their matches around. It's not like Psycho Sid going to the second row because Johnny Ace told him he needed to expand his offensive repertoire. That's Sid, 2001. And Sid goes up to the second row and delivers the boot heard round the world. Crack, snap, crackle, pow. Ah, ah, ah. He's sitting there. Ah, ah, ah. Is that better? You happy, Rick Styles, 1985? The laugh has to happen organically and naturally. Expand his moveset and his offensive repertoire. Yes, he's never done it before. It seems like a great idea. Have the 6'9", 330-pound, muscle-bound, steroid freak softball player come off the second rope and try and hit Steiner with a boot. Nothing bad could happen there. Oh, God. At Rare Breed RKO 97, what are your chances of watching Ring of Honor? Never say never, but at the present moment, not very good. You know what's funny? They just had a pay-per-view last night, and I didn't even know they had a pay-per-view last night until the pay-per-view was well underway. You can say what you want, but at the end of the day, I thought I was a little more clued in than I was. Maybe ROH could have done a better job of actually marketing and promoting and letting me and other fans maybe know the fact that they had an official pay-per-view, not an pay-per-view, but a real deal pay-per-view last night. I don't see much chance of me watching Ring of Honor anytime soon, I'll put it that way. At Clyde the Glide 21, what are the requirements for being in the Breakfast Club? And if you were offered membership, would you take it? Of course I would take it. It's a guarantee of a 7-figure salary, pretty much. And becoming a star on television. Why in the fuck would I not? Not only that, it's a good way to ensure job security long term with the WWE. Of course I would take it. And any of you would take it too. And don't give me that principle shit. That principle shit goes out the door when your annual salary has 2 fucking commas in it. If you don't think otherwise, well, fuck you. Requirements for being in the Breakfast Club. Love of Triple H. Respect for Triple H. Admiration for Triple H. Praise being heaped upon Triple H, understanding your role in relation to Triple H. It's a very Triple H related group, I'll put it that way. There you go. But of course I would want to be in the Breakfast Club. All of you would too. If any of you said that doesn't, well, maybe there's a spot in there for a guy that does flips and kicks. You want to be that fucking guy and be the designated Breakfast Club jobber, you can still get paid well. There you go. You could be the X-Pac of the group. And Principal NYNB closes out this Q&A with, what were your honest-to-God thoughts on Hardcore Justice 2010 and them not being able to say ECW? As far as the part of them not being able to say ECW, it just kind of fits into TNA's whole thing. They're trying to rehash something from almost a decade before, forgetting the whole point, like I talked about in my video I did yesterday about TNA and wrestling fans needing to let ECW go, and I'll put that link in the description box. They're trying to rehash something from the past. They're trying to grasp onto that. They're throwing their entire roster basically under the bus to let these old washed-up guys sit there and have their own pay-per-view on TNA's dime and expense. And then they can't even use the company's name of which they're trying to rip off from and get a rub off of that hasn't been around for almost a decade. It kind of sums up TNA in a way. And Hardcore Justice 2010, while on the one hand it seemed to be a box office success for the TNA company compared to other pay-per-views that they do, it was an unmitigated disaster. That show was terrible. That show was the shits. My opinion. So anyways, again, if you want to have your questions answered in future Q&As, information on how to do so is in the description box down below. Make sure you give the show a follow on Twitter, like the show's Facebook page. Also, make sure you check out my work for ProFootballSpot.com. And information, of course, is in the description box down below. Subscribe to this channel. Check out my other channel if you want to hear my thoughts on non-wrestling related topics, youtube.com/SlegDaddyTV. All right, well, stay tuned to this channel for other great content throughout the week, and I'll be back with another Q&A episode on Wednesday. So start tweeting your questions now.